Welcome, Twilight Traveler. You find yourself suddenly transported to a richly decorated Victorian ballroom, the rustle of silk and the soft murmur of conversation filling the air. Candles flicker, casting dancing shadows on the damask-paneled walls, while the scent of lilies and beeswax lingers. But make no mistake, this is no ordinary party. This is your stage, and you, my dear, are about to embark on the most treacherous journey of a Victorian woman's life: marriage. You probably won't survive it with your sanity intact, or perhaps you won't even live to tell the tale, for Victorian society has subtle and not so subtle ways of shaping and breaking its ladies. So, before you decide if this moment touched you even slightly, don't forget to like the video and subscribe, but only if you mean it. And if you like, share our comments. Where are you now? And at what time did the world outside decide to slow down? It would be gratifying. Now, dim the lights, let the fans sing that steady background tune, and come. Let's venture together. You stand before an ornate mirror, its polished bronze frame reflecting the soft candlelight. The reflection staring back at you is that of a young woman with a restless glint in her eyes. It's your eyes. The anticipation of a marriage proposal hangs in the air like a sweet, suffocating perfume, mingled with the smell of wax and the unmistakable scent of garden lilies that, strangely, seem to bloom more intensely than usual. Your parents, Sir Charles and Lady Beatrice, were quite explicit about the need for a good marriage. The pressure is immense, an invisible but heavy burden on your shoulders, especially since your cousin, the prettier Penelope, is already engaged to the young and promising Mr. Alistair Finch, a man with a financial future as solid as it is tedious. Penelope, with her air of false modesty and sweet smiles, never misses an opportunity to remind her of her lonely fate and the shame she would bring to her family if she didn't find a husband soon. The most prominent candidate is Mr. Arthur Blackwood, a wealthy and impeccable knight from one of Northumberland's most traditional families. He possesses extensive estates, a seat in Parliament, and a lineage dating back to the Norman conquest. His gaze, however, seems to examine rather than admire, like a cattle appraiser assessing a new acquisition. He is the ideal choice, according to her mother, who insists on his impeccable manners, his steady social standing, and his ability to prove everything a Victorian lady should desire, she says. Her heart, however, yearns for something more, perhaps the kind of sweeping romance one reads in paperbacks hidden under the pillow, read by candlelight in the early hours of the morning. But in a society where marriage is more a social and financial contract than a union of hearts, where alliances of land and fortune intersect, love is a luxury, not a necessity, and passion is a danger to be avoided. One night, during a dazzling ball at Blenheim Palace, the air shimmers with the music of an orchestra and the rustle of hundreds of silk dresses. You feel Penelope's gaze upon you, a small, smug smile on her lips, as Mr. Blackwood approaches with the formality of a royal herald. He invites you for a discreet stroll through the rose garden, a fragrant maze beneath the moonlight. The evening breeze kisses your face, and the intoxicating scent of the roses barely muffles your racing, irregular heartbeat. You know what's coming. With an almost robotic formality and a tone of voice that could be reading a legal document, he utters the words, "It would be an inestimable honor to have you as my wife and thus unite our illustrious families. It's a passionless request, a duty fulfilled, a formal transaction." You feel a pang of disappointment, bitter as vinegar, but the reality of the situation asserts itself. Refusing would be unthinkable, an irreparable disgrace to your family and yourself, casting you into social ostracism. With a barely audible sigh, lost in the whisper of the wind through the leaves, you accept. The ring, a solitaire diamond in a heavy gold band, is placed on your finger. It's cold and heavy, a symbol of your new gilded prison. The announcement of your fiancé is a public event carefully orchestrated by your mother, Lady Beatrice, who transforms the news into a veritable social triumph. She makes sure everyone knows that you've snagged Mr. Blackwood, one of the region's greatest fortunes, before Penelope could even dream of getting her hands on him. Society, a living, gossipy organism, goes into an uproar. Letters of congratulations, and some of thinly veiled envy, arrive in a flood, clogging your mailbox. Penelope, of course, is the first to visit, with a saccharine smile that doesn't reach her eyes and venomous comments about how lucky you are to have settled so quickly. She even suggests, in a tone of voice only you can hear, a venomous suggestion in your ear, that Mr. Blackwood has an interesting and rather eventful past, with a certain lady in waiting from a less fortunate family, hinting at scandals. You try to ignore the venom, but the seeds of doubt are planted and begin to germinate in your mind, unsettling. During the engagement period, social scrutiny is relentless, almost suffocating. You and Arthur are never allowed to be alone without a chaperone. Your mother, or the family matchmaker, the strict and omnipresent Miss Agatha Grimshaw, is always on the lookout like a hawk, ensuring no slip-ups occur. Miss Grimshaw, a slender figure with eyes that seem to see into your soul and every impure thought, is an expert at detecting any deviation in a young lady's behavior. She once caught Penelope and Alistair in an overly intimate exchange of glances, and didn't hesitate to deliver a public scolding that left Penelope crying for a week, claiming a terrible migraine. You feel like a doll in a display case, exposed and observed by everyone. Every movement, every smile, scrutinized. A relevant historical fact is that Victorian engagements could last from months to years, depending on the age of the bride and groom, the family's financial situation, and the complexity of the dowry negotiations. A long engagement gave the bride's family time to prepare the trousseau and for the couple to get to know each other better, although always under the strictest surveillance and constant supervision. A peculiar curiosity. It was common for the bride and groom to exchange gifts during the engagement, the most popular being a ring, of course. But they could also include fine jewelry, miniatures painted with each other's likeness, or even books with elaborate dedications. For some, locks of hair were even exchanged, a surprising gesture of intimidation for the time. Time passes, and the future Mrs. Blackwood begins to take shape in your mind. You are introduced to his family, the Blackwoods of Northumberland, a clan even more rigid and formal than yours, if that were possible. The matriarch, Lady Blackwood, is an iron woman, with a penetrating gaze that seems to judge your every move, every word, every thought. She didn't hesitate to comment on your inexperienced youth and the prior need to learn the ways of House Blackwood, as if you were a wild pot to be tamed. You realize that the real battle is yet to come, and the groom is just the first training ground for the life that awaits. Historically, there is still debate as to whether the instability of Victorian grooms was more a way of protecting the unblemished trust of the woman and her family, ensuring that there would be no scandals in their name, or if it was primarily a mechanism to secure the union of great fortunes and maintain the power structure of society. The truth probably lies somewhere in between. You've barely had time to get used to the weight of the ring on your finger when trousseau fever takes over the house. Your mother, Lady Beatrice, with the tireless help of Miss Agatha Grimshaw, turns what should be a period of joyful anticipation into a marathon of sewing, embroidery, and cataloging. Piles upon piles of fine linen, delicate cotton, and lush silk begin to accumulate, each piece destined to fill the home you will soon share with Mr. Blackwood. But make no mistake, this isn't just about practicality. It's a public display of your virtue, your skill, and, of course, your family's wealth. The more elaborate and abundant the trousseau, the greater the prestige. You spend countless hours in the sewing room, under the watchful eye of the elderly housekeeper, Mrs. Albright, those glasses constantly slipping down her hooked nose. She is relentless, criticizing every uneven stitch, every embroidery that fails to achieve perfection. A Blackwood bride must be impeccable, my dear. She grumbles, tugging the fabric from your hands with a needlepoint. It seems each thread is an extension of your confidence, and a crooked stitch could, in her mind, reveal a character flaw. A grueling and repetitive task. Your fingers are constantly sore from handling fine needles and silk thread, You feel a tiredness in your shoulders, a slight throbbing pain in your wrists. I'm reminded of a modern joke that says, Victorian trousseaux were the equivalent of a sticker album, except the stickers were sheets and you had to sew them together. It's almost that, but with a lot more sweat, less joy, and the constant pressure to be perfect. Penelope, always in the shadows, visits frequently under the pretense of helping. She brings fabric samples, comments on the quality of your linen, and always finds something to criticize. My seamstress says this fabric is of inferior quality for Northumberland high society, she observes casually, her manicured nails gliding over the silk you've spent days embroidering, almost as if testing the durability of your work and your patience. You hear her chatting with Mrs. Albright, a glint in the housekeeper's eyes that you can't quite decipher. Is it a gleam of complicity? It's a subtle alliance, a partnership meant to unsettle you and undermine your confidence. You wonder what she's expecting, or what information is being exchanged. Besides bed linens and towels, the linens include a wide range of delicate and richly adorned underwear. Pure cotton nightgowns and corsets promise to mold your figure into an almost unreal silhouette, capable of making your waist tiny and your bust prominent. The goal is for you to always be impeccable, even under layers of fabric, a work of art even beneath the most intimate garments. The idea that a complete trousseau could even include the same agricultural tools for a rural bride is a peculiar detail, demonstrating the diversity and scope of the tradition depending on social class and region. For high society, however, it was more about presentation and demonstrating wealth and good taste. An interesting historical fact is that the trousseau began when a girl was quite young, around 12 or 13 years old, and continued until her wedding day. This ensured that she would have enough time to accumulate everything considered necessary for a new home, often items that would last a lifetime. Some families even hired professional seamstresses and embroiderers to ensure the quality of the pieces. But the bride was still expected to contribute her own work, proving her diligence, her demanding role as a future housewife, and her submission to the ladies. Amidst all this madness of fabrics and needles, as you're folding the last linen sheets embroidered with the Blackwood initials, you discover a letter addressed to Mr. Blackwood. The seal is broken, and the contents, well, it's a cryptic invitation to a discreet rendezvous at a certain cottage on the outskirts of the Blackwood estate, signed only with the initial C. You feel a chill down your spine, a sense that something is very wrong. Was this another of Penelope's machinations? An attempt to further destabilize you? Or something more sinister related to your future husband? Historically, there's still debate about whether these small plots and sabotages were commonplace within Victorian high society, or whether they were more the figment of the imagination of novelists who loved a good scandal. The pressure to have a perfect trousseau is overwhelming. Your mother insists that every piece must be approved by Lady Blackwood, who has a habit of examining every piece of embroidery with a jeweler's loupe, grumbling about decadent patterns and lack of dedication on the part of her future daughter-in-law. You feel as if you're under particular scrutiny, every flaw magnified for judgment. Miss Grimshaw, with her omnipresent presence, seems to relish your anguish, and you suspect she's reporting your every slip-up to the Blackwood family. After all, the matchmaker's trust depends on the success and impeccability of the marriages she orchestrates. You even try to have a moment of fun and individuality, embroidering a funny little dog, almost a stuffed toy, onto one of the plainest cotton sheets. It's a touch of rebellion, a small laugh amidst so much seriousness. But Lady Beatrice discovers it before you can hide it and throws a fit. My dear, how inappropriate. What would Lady Blackwood think of such frivolity? A dog on a wedding sheet? How absurd. She snatches a piece from your hands and misses. Albright is instructed to undo the work immediately, with a disapproving look that seems to say, I told you she wasn't serious enough. It seems that any hint of your personality is suppressed in favor of the perfect, impersonal image of the Victorian bride. You feel more like a project to be completed than a person with tastes and desires. The day of the final fitting of your wedding dress approaches, bringing a strange mixture of excitement and dread. You've dreamed of this moment since you were a child, but the reality is quite different from the fairy tales. The atelier of the famous Madame Dubois is a sanctuary of whispering silks and delicate lace. The air is heavy with the scent of fine fabrics and the soft sound of seamstresses' needles. It is here that your transformation into Mrs. Blackwood becomes apparent. As you enter, you are enveloped by a sea of ivory, cream, and pure white. It's the color Queen Victoria popularized for wedding dresses, a symbol of purity and wealth. Before her, Victorian brides wore whatever they wanted to pay for and wear again any color, as long as it was the finest garment they owned. An interesting historical fact is that the use of white became the norm after Queen Victoria's marriage to Prince Albert in 1840, when she opted for a white satin dress, setting a trend that lasts to this day. Her dress, however, is a masterpiece of heavy layers, intricate lace, and a seemingly endless train. Mrs. Albright is there, of course, with her poise and critical eye, working every seam. But the surprise comes in the form of Penelope, who appears without warning, with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "How splendid!" she exclaims, her voice a little too loud. "Almost as grand as the Duchess of Sutherland, don't you think, Madame Dubois?" The Madame, a diminutive woman with all-seeing eyes, simply smiles enigmatically. Penelope then begins her private show. As you stand on the vulnerable in the semi-fitted dress, she works the fabric with a connoisseur's air. "Ah, madam, isn't this satin a little fragile?" she asks, sliding a finger along a part of the skirt you hadn't noticed before. "You feel like a small tug." Madame Dubois assures you the fabric is of the highest quality, but doubt it is already planted. Fun fact: many Victorian wedding dresses were so heavy and intricately made that the bride needed help to move, almost like a piece of wearable architecture. This, of course, made any attempted accident a little easier to pull off. Later, while you're trying on a tight bodice that promises a wasp waist, Penelope accidentally spills a cup of tea over the back of her lace veil, claiming a stumble. "Oh heavens, what a disaster," she laments, though there's a glint of triumph in her eyes. The veil, a delicate piece of Irish lace, now sports a dark stain. Your mother is furious, and Madame Dubois promises miracles with her cleansing treatments, but the incident leaves you feeling vulnerable. Was it an accident? Or was it a deliberate attempt to sabotage your big day? Historically, it's still debated how common these little intrigues were in Victorian weddings, or whether most accidents were in fact obvious. You remember the mysterious letter you found in the trousseau? W. Could that be C for Charlotte? Lady Charlotte Sinclair, a childhood friend of Arthur's, who always had information for him and whom Penelope keeps mentioning with a tone of pity about you. The seed of distrust germinates in your mind, turning every accident into a potential act of sabotage. The setup continues, but now you're more attentive, observing Penelope's every move, every whisper between her and Mrs. Sinclair. It's okay. The pressure is immense, not only to appear perfect, but to ensure that nothing or no one gets in your way down the aisle. You try to maintain a calm demeanor, but inside, you feel like a fortress under siege, where every detail, from the orange blossoms in your hair, a symbol of fertility and innocence, to the hem of your dress, is a potential point of attack. You even dream that you're walking down the aisle, but the veil begins to tear, the flowers wilt, and Penelope is at the end of the aisle, laughing. Ah, the mind has a peculiar sense of humor, doesn't it? Or maybe it's just the stress. The big day finally dawns, a mixture of mist and the promise of a pale sun setting over the mansion. You've barely slept, your mind racing with the dress adjustments, Penelope's insinuations, and the mystery of the letter. Today is the day you will become Mrs. Blackwood. The scent of polished wax and lavender hangs in the air as the maids rush about, each with their own task. Your parents, Sir Charles and Lady Beatrice, are visibly agitated. Your mother, in particular, seems more concerned with punctuality and impeccability than with your happiness. "Remember your posture, dear," she whispers as you're tucked into her corset, which clenches your waist to the point of almost choking you. A Blackwood bride must be the embodiment of grace. The physical discomfort is a constant reminder of the formality of the event. Breakfast is a tense formality, where you're encouraged to eat, but anxiety stifles any appetite. Miss Grimshaw, impeccably dressed, supervises every bite as if you were a specimen under observation. She has a habit of frowning at any deviation from etiquette, and today is no exception. The trip to church is a spectacle in itself. You travel in a closed carriage, your bridesmaids including, to your dismay, Penelope following in another. The lace veil, miraculously free of tea stains, hides your face, but not the hubbub of the crowd in the streets. People crowd to catch a glimpse of the bride. Interestingly, while weddings today are more intimate affairs, in the Victorian era they were a public spectacle, and the bride's route to the church was often traversed by onlookers. In the church sacristy, nervousness reaches a fever pitch. The reverend, a portly man with a booming voice, reviews the final rites. You feel Penelope's presence behind you, and the sweet scent of her violet cologne is almost suffocating. As you adjust the train of your dress, a small stained paper envelope slips discreetly into your hand. It's the handwriting you confirm from the letter you found in the trousseau. Don't trust everything he says. The lakeside cottage hides more than secrets, reads the unsigned note. The blood runs cold in your veins. You glance at Penelope, who is chatting animatedly with the second bridesmaid, the sweet and unsuspecting Miss Evelyn. Penelope's smile seems a little solicitude. Could she have been in on the plot, or was she trying to warn her? Historically, it's still debated how common these anonymous denunciations were at high society weddings, or whether family honor prevented such actions. The music begins, the solemn melody of the wedding march filling the air. It's time. You feel your father, Sir Charles's arm trembling slightly as he leads you down the aisle. Each step seems to weigh a ton. Heads turn, the eyes of hundreds of people fixed on you. Mr. Blackwood is waiting at the altar, his figure empowered, a slight smile on his lips. He seems calm, almost impassive. During the ceremony, as the vows are spoken, you feel a slight twinge in your shoulder. It's Penelope, who whispers, almost inaudibly, "Charlotte is watching." You follow her discreetly and see an elegant figure, Lady Charlotte Sinclair, sitting in the front row, her eyes fixed on Arthur. She doesn't have a look of happiness, but rather of resentment. Is this the same C the letter spoke of? You try to focus on the Reverend's words, on the solemn promises, but the seed of doubt planted by Penelope is growing rapidly. The superstition that the bride should wear something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue suddenly takes on new meaning. The something old could be the baggage you bring into this new life. The something new is an uncertainty about your future. The something borrowed is the identity you're about to assume. And the something blue? Perhaps it's the resonance of the melancholy you feel behind this facade of perfect happiness. A dark joke, isn't it? With the vows spoken and the ring firmly on your finger, you find yourself officially married. But the pause that should have accompanied the "I do" is replaced by mounting tension, especially as you head to the wedding banquet. The reception is held at the Blackwoods' majestic estate, a testament to the family's wealth and power. The gardens are immaculate, adorned with rare flowers and bubbling fountains, and the ballroom is packed with high society guests, all eager to witness the union and, of course, to gossip. As you enter the ballroom with Mr. Blackwood, a burst of polite applause and a few ahs and ohs echo. You try to smile, but the sadness of your corset, the worry about the anonymous letter, and Lady Charlotte Sinclair's gauze prevents you from fully relaxing. Mrs. Albright stands in a corner, observing everything with her eagle-eyed expression, and you feel her eyes on you like X-rays. It's a game of appearances, and you need to maintain your mask. The banquet is an extravaganza of elaborate dishes and fine wines. The tables, expansive and covered in crisp white linen, resemble a gastronomic battlefield. There are no fewer than 7 dishes of roast miata suckling pig stuffed with apples, a pheasant with fine herbs, and even an impressive cut of purebred beef adorned with bay leaves and roasted potatoes. alongside pyramids of exotic fruits, quivering jellies and vibrant shades of red and amber, and an array of freshly baked breads await the guest's attention. Bowls of soup, rich, creamy broths, and roasted fish perfume the air. For dessert, intricate cakes with layers of icing, flaming plum puddings, and trays of exquisite pastries come for attention. Historically, Victorian wedding banquets were often a display of family wealth, with an excessive number of dishes to impress the guests, many of which were barely touched. It was a true display of opulence, often more for ostentation than for actual consumption. You've sat at the head table, next to Mr. Blackwood and the family matriarch, Lady Blackwood. She, with her steely air, doesn't miss a single detail. Her eyes move from your hand reaching for a piece of bread, to your chewing mouth, to your erect posture. "Mrs. Blackwood," she says, with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes but freezes her muscles superficially, "you must learn to savor every moment. Married life is full of delights." You wonder if she's talking about the fruit tart or the complex intrigues that permeate high society life. There's a peculiar curiosity here. Victorian cutlery was so specific to each type of food, fish, forks, cheese, knives, ice cream spoons that table etiquette was almost a choreographed dance, and a mistake could be seen as an unforgivable social faux pas. Penelope, strategically seated at a nearby table, is in her element. She flirts shamelessly with the younger knights, including the promising Captain Davies, whose cheeks flush with every laugh she emits. With each raucous guffaw that echoes through the hall, you feel a chill run down your spine. She approached you under the pretense of toasting the newlyweds, but her comments are always a thinly veiled dig. "You look a little pale, dear," she whispers, approaching with a glass of sparkling champagne. "Perhaps the stress of the big day? Or is it a certain regret?" You decline the champagne, opting for a glass of water, remembering the superstition that water clears the mind. You even hear her whisper to Mrs. Albright, who nods slightly, confirming your suspicions of an unspoken alliance. "That water, dear," Penelope scoffs, "won't wash away the truth." Later, during the toasts, Mr. Blackwood's best man, Lord Reginald, a man with an imposing mustache and a booming voice that seems capable of shaking the walls, stands. He praises Arthur, but then turns into a tale about the groom's youth. He mentions in passing a certain adventure with a very passionate lady, a lady of great beauty and ardent passion, but who was not fit for respectable society. The comment is met with polite laughter and furtive glances in your direction. You feel the heat rise to your face. Penelope, of course, meets your eyes with a mischievous smile. Could this be the C the letter spoke of? Lady Charlotte Sinclair, across the room, seems to be looking down at her plate, her fist tightly clenched on a tablecloth. Historically, it is still debated how acceptable these premarital indiscretions were, or were they often used as social leverage to disqualify rivals in arranged marriages. What for a man might have been a youthful adventure for a woman was ruined. The wedding cake is a tower of sweetness and extravagant decorations, with intricate icing details and tiny sugar flowers. It's a work of art that looks like it took days to build. Interestingly, it was customary to save a piece of the cake, often the top, to be eaten at the christening of the first child, symbolizing the continuity of the family and the promise of fertility. As Mr. Blackwood cuts the first slice, he invites you to place your hand over his, a display of unity for the photographers and society. You feel a shiver. It's not the coldness of his hand that worries you, but the strange familiarity with which he looks at Lady Charlotte, who now looks up, smiling at the audience. A moment of togetherness becomes a reminder that perhaps you are hidden. It's almost as if the cake, so sweet on the outside, hides a bitter layer within. During the dance, Mr. Blackwood leads you in a formal, emotionless waltz. Your steps are perfect, rehearsed, but there's no warmth between you. You feel like a puppet in his hands, controlled by every movement of society. He whispers, "You dance well, Mrs. Blackwood. You will be a valuable addition to our balls." It's a compliment that's like a comment on a possession, a new piece in his collection of prestigious objects. You smile, jaw tense, wondering if he even notices the storm raging inside. What others see is a radiant bride. What you feel is the weight of a secret and the constant presence of an unseen danger. With every twirl, you sense Charlotte's shadow and Penelope's cunning presence. The pleasant wedding feast has finally subsided, and you find yourself embarking on your long-awaited honeymoon. In the Victorian imagination, the honeymoon was a time for couples to retreat from the public eye and begin their intimate lives. For you, however, it's a mixture of the meltdown of escaping society and a renewed wave of anxiety about what awaits you. Mr. Blackwood's chosen destination is a picturesque hunting lodge on the family's country estate, nestled amid dense forests and a mirror-like lake, the same lakeside cottage mentioned in the anonymous note. A coincidence? Or an invitation to danger? The carriage ride is long and silent, the wheels turning rhythmically over the gravel of the private road. Mr. Blackwood reads a newspaper, the Times neatly folded in his hands, engaged in a banal comment about the landscape passing quickly outside the window. "See there, a fine specimen of oak," he says, without taking his eyes off the paper. You watch the trees pass by in a blur of green, your mind racing. The note is still hidden in your body, its sharp point gently prodding your skin, a constant reminder of the intrigue. You wonder if he knows about the letter, if he suspects something, or if he's completely oblivious to the machinations surrounding you. There's a heavy silence between you, a space not filled with conversation, but rather with hidden thoughts and unasked questions. Arriving at the cabin, the fresh, pure country air is a balm to your lungs. Accustomed to the heavy, dusty city air, the cabin is rustic but charming, built of stone and dark wood, and the fireplace already crackles, radiating a welcoming warmth. Yet it is somewhat isolated, surrounded by dense woodland that seems to embrace it. What to the Victorian mind demanded privacy and exclusivity, to you, brings a latent sense of vulnerability. The elderly housekeeper, Mrs. Perkins, a slender woman of few words and curious eyes, welcomes you with an almost robotic formality. Have you noticed that she looks at Mr. Blackwood with a strange mixture of respect and pity? It's a peculiar detail, but one that makes your stomach churn. She seems to know more than she's letting on. The first few nights are a delicate dance of decorum and unspoken expectations. Marital intimidation in the Victorian era was a topic shrouded in mystery and silence, especially for the bride, who was often raised in complete ignorance on the subject. You were expected to be innocent, while simultaneously fulfilling your marital duty to ensure the succession and the family lineage. It's a hilarious dichotomy, if it weren't so oppressive and anxiety-ridden. I remember once hearing that many brides' sex education consisted of their mothers saying, in a low, evasive voice, "Now, dear, do whatever your husband asks and don't ask any questions." Almost exactly, but without the "don't ask any questions," because you have plenty. An interesting historical fact is that many Victorian honeymoons were spent at country estates or coastal resorts, seeking fresh air and tranquility away from the social hustle and bustle of London. The idea of traveling abroad for a honeymoon was less common among the majority of society, being a luxury reserved for the more affluent and adventurous who could afford the cost and time. Interestingly, some Victorian couples had specific rituals, such as planting a sapling on their newly acquired property, symbolizing the growth of their love and family over time. For you, however, the only ritual seems to be constant surveillance of Mr. Blackwood and the search for answers about his past. One afternoon, while Mr. Blackwood leaves for a hunt, taking with him his faithful hunting dog, the majestic Hunter, you decide to explore the cottage. The note spoke of secrets. You search for clues, your fingers gliding over the aged wood of the furniture and the cold stone walls. In his office, a secret compartment in a dark mahogany desk reveals a small, leather-bound diary with the initials CS engraved in faded gold. The pages are yellowed with age, and the handwriting is not Arthur's Persention. It is feminine, elegant, and expressive. The entries speak of a forbidden love, a secret child, and a dashed hope that collapsed under the weight of social propriety. The diary is signed with the letter C. The name Lady Charlotte Sinclair resonates in your mind, now with painful clarity. The cottage by the lake was their secret refuge, the place where they met and dreamed of a future that never came. You feel a lump in your throat, tightening with each line you read. Mr. Blackwood, your husband, had an illegitimate child with Lady Charlotte, a carefully guarded secret that the diary now exposes. Victorian society, with its obsession with reputation, morality, and inheritance, would have made a huge scandal if it knew. The letter you found in the trousseau, Penelope's insinuations, Lady Charlotte's glances at the wedding, it all begins to make cruel, undeniable sense. Penelope knew somehow. And Miss Grimshaw, the matchmaker, also knew and helped cover it up. Historically, there's still debate about how common the birth of illegitimate children was in Victorian high society, and how far families went to hide such secrets and protect their lineage from any taint. When Mr. Blackwood returns from the hunt, Hunter running ahead of him, you try to hide your anguish and the hidden diary. He seems to notice a change in you, a different gleam in your eyes, perhaps a new seriousness, but he doesn't comment. The silence between you grows heavy, filled with unsaid secrets and the weight of a past that is now part of the present. You lie in bed at night, the diary hidden under your pillow, and the thought that you married a man who already had a child with another woman, and about whom your own cousin so dishonestly tried to warn you, keeps you awake. It's a married life that begins with an explosive secret, and the honeymoon feels more like a period of espionage than romance, a preparation for the battles to come. The honeymoon ends, and you return to the Blackwood estate, not as a newlywed bride full of dreams, but as a Victorian wife carrying the weight of a secret. The vast mansion, with its imposing hallways and cold rooms, now feels less like a home and more like a fortress where truths are hidden. Your new married life is a tangle of domestic challenges and persistent intrigue, and you find yourself constantly balancing society's expectations with the need to protect yourself, and perhaps even Mr. Blackwood, from scandal. Your primary responsibility as the Blackwood wife is to oversee the household, and it's no easy task. Mrs. Albright is here too, acting as your shadow, reporting every misstep to Lady Blackwood. From managing the vast staff of servants, which includes chambermaids, cooks, butlers, valets, butlers, laundresses, and even gardeners, planning the extravagant menus for formal dinners and organizing social events, every detail matters. You spend hours reviewing the account books, ensuring every pound and shilling is well spent, and inspecting every room, looking for a speck of dust or an object out of place. The house is a microcosm of Victorian society, with its rigid hierarchy and constant buzz of gossip. I remember a joke from the time that said, "A Victorian wife is a general in her own army of servants, and her greatest battle is against dust." Yes, that's exactly right. But with the addition of a battle against the malice of others, Lady Blackwood, a ruthless matriarch, is a constant and commanding presence. She oversees your lessons in how to be a true Blackwood lady with military rigor. You learn the art of receiving guests with impeccable etiquette, the correct order for the cutlery at a formal 15-course dinner, and don't you dare miss a single one. And the importance of never, ever displaying emotion in public, no matter how great the private scandal you're facing. She even instructs you on how to order servants around, with Mrs. Albright always at your side like a sergeant, ensuring you don't make any faux pas that could dishonor the Blackwood family name, which, according to Lady Blackwood, is older than time itself. The question of heirs, of course, hangs over you like a dark, heavy cloud. In a society where lineage and the continuity of the family name are paramount, the anticipation of conceiving a child is immense and almost palpable. Lady Blackwood makes veiled but direct comments about the importance of doing her duty and securing the family's future, casting meaningful glances at her belly. You feel the weight of this expectation on your shoulders, especially now that you know the secret of Arthur's illegitimate child. With each passing day without joyful news, the pressure builds, expressed in sighs and disapproving looks. Penelope, to your chagrin, is an even more frequent visitor than before. She always appears with a sweet smile and a new sweetheart, or a trick question about Mr. Blackwood and his nocturnal habits. She insists on discussing the season's social events, inquiring about your encounters with Lady Charlotte Sinclair, always with a look that says, loud and clear, to you and anyone else paying attention, I know your secret, and I can expose it at any moment. She delights in sowing distrust between you and Arthur, commenting on how often he goes out on business and how busy he seems, with an air of false compassion. A relevant historical fact is that many high society Victorian wives devoted much of their time to household management and philanthropy, which was seen as an extension of their moral duties. They were expected to be the moral and organizational pillar of the home, while their husbands focused on their business or political careers. A fascinating curiosity is that, even with so many servants, the lady of the house was expected to have in-depth knowledge of every aspect of household management, from meticulous bookkeeping to overseeing the pantry and canning, ensuring that nothing was wasted or mismanaged. One day, while organizing your husband's papers in your study task, you were instructed to do regularly to keep order, and you suspect, so Lady Blackwood could check your diligence, you find, hidden beneath farm reports and business correspondence, a series of old letters between Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood. The letters confirm what you already suspected: a passionate romance, the promise of a future together, and the pain of separation forced by family circumstances, probably a difference in Charlotte's social status at the time. In one of the letters, Charlotte mentions little Edward, with a tenderness that breaks your heart, a clear and undeniable reference to their son. You are frozen, or it is trapped in your lungs. The secret is even deeper and more painful than you imagined. Edward is not just an illegitimate child. He is the fruit of a love that was crushed by convenience. As you try to digest this devastating new information, the office door opens and Mrs. Albright enters, carrying a clinking tea tray. Her sharp eyes scan the desk. You quickly hide the letters under other papers, your heart pounding like a drum. Just organizing, Mrs. Albright, you say, your voice sounding more controlled than you expected, almost a suggestion. She smiles, but there's something in her eyes, a knowing glint, a veiled complicity that suggests she saw something, or was waiting for you to find something. Historically, there's still debate about how loyalists were raised by their employing families, or whether they often had their own secrets and agendas, often employed as informants or even as accomplices in family intrigues. That evening, you confront Mr. Blackwood in his locker room. He seems surprised at first, then his expression becomes resigned. He confesses the story of Edward, the son he had with Charlotte before their arranged marriage, and how the Blackwood family forced him to hide the child and marry someone of impeccable lineage to ensure the family's prestige. He explains that Edward was raised secretly on a distant estate under the care of Charlotte's parents, keeping the child away from the gossiping eyes of society. Anger mingles with a strange pity for Arthur, who has also fallen victim to his own family's relentless expectations. You are, in essence, a front for a family secret, a piece on a larger chessboard. It's a very Victorian situation, isn't it? Honor above all else, even if it means crushing hearts, hiding the truth, and creating intricate lies. The intrigue continues, but now you have an active role in it, for the secret is yours too, to protect or to export. The revelation about Edward, Arthur, and Charlotte's secret son hangs over you like a dense fog, permanently altering the landscape of your marriage. You now understand a complex web of secrets and sacrifices that keep the Blackwood family afloat. The journey to becoming a Victorian bride wasn't just about dresses and rituals. It was about navigating a maze of social expectations, personal intrigue, and, in your case, a family secret that threatened to explode at any moment. Now, as the final images of this complex journey begin to fade, let's slow down and soften the pace. Close your eyes for a moment and let the vibrant, intense colors fade into softer hues. Take a deep breath. You are no longer the anxious bride, nor the beleaguered wife. You are an observer, a traveler who has peeled back the veils of time to understand a world so different from our own. Married life at Blackwood Manor was no fairy tale, but a challenging reality, where you became the steward of a vast household and the keeper of a heavy secret. The pressure to produce an heir, Lady Blackwood's constant supervision, and Penelope's persistent presence served as daily reminders that your life was no longer your own. You were, above all, a Blackwood. And with that name came a host of responsibilities and, essentially, the secrets of your new family. Remember, even with all the pressures and intrigue, you demonstrated remarkable resilience. The ability to navigate these turbulent waters and face the truth of a hidden past demonstrates an inner strength that Victorian society, despite its limitations, somehow nurtured in its women. You've endured a groom full of innuendo, a ceremony marked by furtive glances, a trousseau under scrutiny, and a honeymoon that became a treasure hunt for hidden truths. Each step was a lesson, sometimes painful, in the difficulties and contradictions of Victorian society. You learned that purity and honor were ideally suited to be defended publicly, even if behind the scenes the reality was far more complex. And the honeymoon. Oh, the honeymoon. The supposed romantic retreat turned into a private investigation, a moment of silence that revealed the heart of a family secret. The lakeside house, intended as a sanctuary, became the vault of a diary that revealed the truth about Edward and Charlotte. The silence, with her husband, Arthur, was filled with the dissonance of unspoken truths, transforming intimidation into a field of observation. Consider the young Victorian women who actually lived through these experiences. They didn't have the luxury of stopping and reflecting like we do. They lived day after day, facing their own Penelopes and Lady Blackwoods, with no certainty of a happy ending. Their lives were woven with threads of duty, sacrifice, and, occasionally, quiet rebellion. Their strength lay in the ease of their role and the search for small pockets of autonomy within a rigidly controlled system. Allow any tension you may have felt during this story to dissipate now. There are no more secrets to be discovered, no plots to be unraveled. The Blackwood estate and its inhabitants are now linked to a distant time. The rustle of sedatives, the whisper of gossip, the creak of corsets, everything dissolves into a tranquil silence. Imagine yourself in an open field, under a starry sky, where the gentle breeze whispers ancient secrets that no longer touch you. The journey is over, and with it, any residual worries. Consider your own journey through this story. You didn't bow to manipulation. You investigated, you questioned, and you discovered the truth. This curiosity and courage, however silent, are the true core of the Victorian bride's strength. She was not a passive figure, but a woman who, within the limitations of her time, found ways to assert her own identity and protect her space. The irony is that, by delving so deeply into rules and expectations, you also discover the cracks and fissures through which true life, with its passions and secrets, leaked. Dear traveler, I hope this journey through the heart of the Victorian era was more than just a bedtime story. It offers a glimpse into a complex time, where beauty and formality were inseparable from challenges and secrets. Being mindful means understanding that, just as in the Victorian era, in any social context there are hidden dynamics and expectations. Observe, listen, and protect your inner peace. The resilience you found in this story is a reminder that strength can be found even in the most restrictive situations. Sleep well, dear traveler, and have sweet, sweet dreams.